So 2 hours after this victim loses his life, the cops run up in the hotel, they arrest your son and his co-defendant.
Right.
Because you mentioned this earlier, so I want to make sure I got my facts straight. No DNA, no weapon, no anything did they find. They just find two young men smoking weed. That's what they get arrested on. How does it turn into a murder charge?
It turns into a murder charge when the victim's mother says, I know that he was going to meet two Americans, and this is where he was going to meet the two Americans at. But the place that they said that he was going to meet the two Americans at was the restaurant that he called and made a reservation for. But the place he got killed is all the way on the other side of town. So they asked the mother, they say, is it possible that he could have stopped to see somebody else? And the mother said, yes, anything's possible. You know what I'm saying? I'm just telling you that he was supposed to meet them over here. So that's what made them run, because they figured that if I bailed him out, that he wasn't going to be able to come back. So what they did at that point in time is they snatched the passport, because the bill was only $300 Namibian, which is about $30 of our money, $40 of our money. So once I bailed him out, they snatched the passport and said, no, we giving him a murder charge now. So it's just so many, it really boils down to them really just not letting them go, because you don't have no evidence. And when they came in the room to search them, they just picked up the telephones, they just grabbed the computer, took the computer over to the victim mother house. Like they did nothing under procedure. They searched 2 times, they never found nothing. And then it just finds it funny that they searched the 3rd time. Now, they searched the 3rd time with nobody being there, which is against the law, because you either gotta have the people there that you're charging with the crime, or you gotta have their lawyer. They didn't do neither one of them. They didn't bring them back, and they didn't tell a lawyer. So when they did this, they said they found a gun barrel and a silencer. So we just found it funny that the 3rd time that y'all searched by yourself, this is what y'all found. Then they're ballistic.
When you say they searched 3 different times, is it 3 different times in the same day?
No, 3 different days. The 7th, the 9th,
okay, and I'm asking
11th.
you this. I'm asking you this because, I mean, it's a bed and breakfast. People rent rooms. Was that room off limits? Was nobody else allowed?
Nobody else was allowed in that room.
Okay.
Nobody else was allowed in that room. Technically.
Right. We okay. Got you. Okay. I'm going to get back to this part of the story, but I want to go a little bit backwards.
Okay.
Your son gets arrested. It's not like you were in Africa. How did you get word of this, and where were you?
I was in Paris. That's me and Puff was in Paris. That's when the album had just came out. The Paris album had just came out. So we was over in Paris promoting it, and his baby mother called me on my cell phone. And she told me Kev was locked up. I said, huh? He in Africa. What are you talking about he's locked up? She said, yeah, he's locked up for murder in Africa. And then I flew from Paris straight to Africa. Puff was like, yo, you halfway there now. You might as well go from here. And I flew from there straight to Africa.
Okay, got you. So when you got there, he's locked up already.
Yes.
You know, I've obviously been to Africa a few times, but for somebody who is not from the country, I gotta assume that their jails are very different than ours. Like, when you go to see your son the first time and he's locked up, what are the conditions he's under? Can you help us get a sense of what an African jail/prison looks like and the condition? Because you mentioned there were 10 people in the. What did you see?
Me, what I seen a lot of dirt, and I just seen a building. And when I came in, It was just a bunch of police there and a bunch of windows where I could see my son behind the window. Nothing was clean. You know what I'm saying? It just looked like they put up cement and they put in cells. And that's where he was at. You know, but I made the mistake. Where I made the mistake is I made the mistake of Googling it. So when I Googled it, of course I seen all the cuttings, all the stabbings, and everything else that was there. So I basically asked, like, what do y'all eat in here? And it was basically porridge, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then we have porridge for dinner. You know what I'm saying? Unless you know somebody there. And if you know somebody there, then they could bring you in home cooked food from Monday to Thursday. You know what I'm saying? But of course, he don't know nobody there, so he's eating the porridge and the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And this is the conditions that he's been in the same jail for 11 and a half years.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. And you mentioned porridge and peanut butter. Up here is commissary. Does he have commissary down there where he can get real food and get money on his books?
No, he doesn't have any of that. They just started because of COVID. They just started having a store there because of COVID where you can order certain stuff, but they charge more than the actual store because they want to make profit. Whereas here, when we go to commissary, we either get it for the price that it costs or we get it for less. You know what I'm saying? Over there, being that it's a new program and they just starting it, right now they're in it for profit.
So you're telling me your son's been locked up now for 11 and a half years.
Yeah.
One thing I want to shine light on that you touched on earlier, but it's necessary. Your son is not upstate New York. He's not in the States. He's literally, if you take a plane to Africa, that's a 24-hour trip, like 24 real hours.
Right.
Up until COVID, they didn't even have a system of commissary where this boy could get anything different. So if it wasn't for either the young lady that or her family who goes to visit him or bring him food, he was eating the same peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and porridge 7 days a week, 365 days a year?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you know, lucky thing for her because I left her a green card, you know, the green dot card, so I could call from this side, put money on the card, and she could go to the store and take him some stuff. But now she can't even do that because they don't let nothing in from outside no more. So everything you buy now, you have to buy out that store now. There's no more home packages at all, period. So now it's even costing us more to feed him because they don't charge the same prices that they do in the store. They charge more prices, in which my son has a lawsuit in. My son has a lawsuit in now to get them to lower their prices in. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the kid is a very smart kid, like I said. He went to college and everything else. So even in these 11 and a half years, he's mastered 3 different languages. You know what I'm saying? He speaks Afrikaner. He speaks colored, which are 2 different languages. You know, so light-skinned people in Africa speak one language. Dark-skinned people speak a different language. You know what I'm saying? One is Afrikaner and one is called colored. So he speaks that fluently, you know what I'm saying, as well as speaking American. So everything that you could do there, the kid is they do whatever they want to do with him. They put him in solitary confinement for 19 months. He was locked up for 19 months for 24 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Because his co-defendant tried to escape. He didn't try to escape, but they still went to his cell and put him inside. They built him a cell. Like he says, Pop, I actually watched them build this cell and then put me in it. He said it took him 2 weeks to build and then they put me in it for 19 months. He has another lawsuit against that. All of these things we are fighting and the embassy is just sitting there saying, okay, well, we don't get involved with foreign policies and stuff like that. When we all know that's a lie. We watch them get involved with different people that's incarcerated all the time. But this is the mental things that they put him through. And they put him through this because they figure he will crack. And he's like, I don't have nothing to crack about. So this is the abuse that they putting him through, and this is the abuse that we're seeing him go through. I just left there a week ago.
You know, I know you've been down there from time to time checking on your son. I got to ask you a couple of questions. Number one, have you ever sat down as a man on one of your trips down there and asked your son straight up, did you do what you're accused of? And number two is the most obvious question. It's 11 and a half years later, and the trial just started. How is that even possible? I don't know of any cases that can drag on for 11 and a half years before they even start a trial.
Well, this trial been going on now for 6 years.
Excuse me? So it started 6 years ago?
Yeah, the trial started 6 years ago. In between these trials, see, over here in America, we start trial, we finish trial. And that's what it is. Over there, they don't. Over there, you get week a trial this month, a week next month, a week the month after. Then they might take off 6 months because the judge got other cases and things like that. In my son's cases was a lot of that, but in my son's case, he got rid of 6 lawyers himself. His co-defendant got rid of 9 lawyers because each lawyer that came in there with the notion of them being guilty. The notion of what were you doing down here? The notion of that you're American. The notion of, just take this time and go about. And my son is stuck on his principles. I did not do this. I have nothing to do with this. I don't want you to represent me if you feel this way. So throughout this 11 and a half years, periodically, it has been times where he had legal aids. And when he had those legal aids, he had to get rid of them. And that was one of the things that made me really, really, really go so hard to get this private lawyer who not only was just private, but you got to believe what my son say if you're going to represent him. I don't care if he go through 20 lawyers. People try to say, oh, no, but he's holding it up himself. No, he's not holding it up himself. This is his life in jeopardy. And if you don't believe me, I don't want you representing me. So they used a lot of that to hold off because to this day, like I told you, all these things that they don't have, they still put off. And it seems like to me, like before this trial is over, we looking at 15 years. So even though they don't have nothing, they might be satisfied in themselves knowing that, we just made him do 15 years. And as I talk to people like Akon and different other people who've told me, Boo, different other people have told me, like, your son could have actually went to trial in the United States for the murder in Africa because it's federal. So it's just a lot of things by him not being rich and by him not being famous that I wasn't woken up to, a lot of things that could have happened.
Insane. So your son has been going through a trial for 6.5 years.
Been going through a trial for 6.5, yep.
When do y'all expect this trial to be over?
Well, like I just said, I just left there and the state is still on trial. So the state is calling anything and everything that you could name as a witness to be a witness. They even called the young lady that spent the night with my son that night. And she was like, yeah, I spent the night there, but nothing happened. Okay, cool. But she said, I spent the night there, you know what I'm saying, that he was there. The maid said, yeah, the light-skinned one was in there. They even got people that called the room for his roommate and said, no, he wasn't there, but the other American was there. So it's things that they know that my son was there. You know what I'm saying? They know that my son was innocent. You know what I'm saying? It's just that my son is not cooperative because he feels he has no need to be cooperative. For what? I didn't do it, and that's that. It all lies on you to show something different. I'm not worrying about you showing nothing different because nothing different happened. But what I am worried about you is covering up what really did happen. And that's what we dealing with 11 and a half years later.
Okay. You just mentioned and I was gonna get to this. He has an alibi. There's a young woman who was there, and she doesn't owe your son anything. It's not like they stayed together after this. She could have easily been like, yo, you know what? I don't want nothing to do with this. I got to live down here. But she said, yes, I was with him. The maids, the people who cleaned the room. Yes, the light-skinned boy was in the room. Your son clearly has an alibi, but he's still on trial, if I read my notes correct, with a co-defendant. Why isn't these two trials separate? I don't know if the co-defendant has an alibi, but your son does. Is there a reason why the lawyers did not split these two trials up?
Well, we tried to split them. We tried to split them, but they have something down there that they call common interest, right? So they try to say that my son and the young man came there together on the same flight and everything, and they did everything together. Whenever one person left the hotel, the other one left. So they say that you can't do it separately. But even that, we've shown in court that they didn't come down there together. One came through Switzerland, where the passport lady got on there and said, this guy came through Switzerland because his passport is stamped. This guy didn't come through Switzerland because his passport is stamped. So it just shows right there that they didn't come there together. You know what I'm saying? It's people that they rented the car from. They call and say, yo, we need to speak to such and such. Oh, well, he's not here. So that shows they didn't leave the hotel together. You have the notes from the police that shows that the receptionist said that my son was still in the room and that the other guy left. But the odd thing that you asked me about that is that the police said that he threw away his notes 6 years ago or 5 years ago. So now there's no notes to refer to about the witnesses that he interviewed, the people that said that my son was in the room and everything, because he threw away the notes that he took to the murder case 6 years ago. And he said that it was too many notes and that his office was getting too crowded and he had too many cases. And he stood up there on the trial and told my son and them to go look in the garbage because it still might be there.
Wow. Wow. I should have asked you this question earlier, Bonds, but it's a very obvious question. I've flown overseas just like you, and for anybody who's watching this, they'll understand where I'm going with this. You can't even fly domestic without damn near getting strip searched. Overseas, it's 10 times worse in terms of going through metal detectors. You got all different types of agencies making sure you cleared to go through customs. They searched your son's room 3 times. Third time they come up with a weapon. Where do they even suppose a weapon came from? Because it ain't like they took a weapon over there. And if they're not from there, who gave it to them? Did they find it on the street? Like, what are they saying in regards to a very obvious question? These guys didn't come here with no weapon. Where could they have gotten one if they don't know nobody here?
Well, at the beginning, this was 3 years ago. They had 3 guys that they called vigilantes. We call them street guys. But they had 3 guys that took the stand and said that they gave my son and a co-defendant a gun. So the lawyer said, what type of gun did y'all give him? So they said, we gave him a 7.65 or whatever. Whatever it wasn't the gun or the magnum or the bullet that killed the victim. But more important than that is the lawyer said, y'all the only people that's admitting to ever having a gun. Where did you get the gun from? And all 3 of the guys said, oh, we got it from somebody that we haven't seen in the last 11 and a half years. So then they said, but did y'all ever get locked up for this case because y'all said that y'all gave somebody else a gun? They said they never got locked up for the case. They never got arrested for the case. They said, well, have the police been to any of your houses to look for this gun? No, the police never came to our houses or nothing to look for this gun. So we was just trying to figure out, even if you cooperate with the authorities, you have to be arrested for the crime first. And then if you want to cooperate, you cooperated. All three of these African guys never got arrested, never got locked up, never got questioned past that day, never got a visit from the house. So the lawyer said the gun could actually be in one of y'all house. And how come y'all never seen the person y'all bought the gun from in 11 and a half years? So clearly we see what's going on, and clearly we see the cover up. Clearly we see they American, and this is how you feel about them coming over there. They not supposed to be there when we really supposed to be dealing with the facts and what went on. There is none. And to be honest with you, I spoke to the embassy, and when I speak to the embassy says, well, Mr. Rowan, we've looked at the case and we don't feel like Namibia is doing anything wrong for us to step in. So I'm trying to figure out, so them being the 11 and a half years, them not finishing trial, the officer throwing away his notes and everything, nobody else being incarcerated for the case, and no evidence of nothing, we don't feel like we need to step in yet? And they said, no, we don't feel like we need to. So that's what I'm dealing with for the last 11 and a half years. And that's why I threw everything to the side and said, if I don't throw my hat all the way into the ring, nobody's going to know about this.
I gotta ask you, sticking with the gun for a second. They said the third time they searched the room, they found what, a silencer, and they found a gun, correct?
Right.
Okay.
No, they found a barrel, not a gun.
They found
a barrel, right.
Okay. Number one, I'm sure they tested that for ballistics. You can tell what bullet comes out of that barrel.
Exactly.
Did they ever test that, number one? And number two, 2 hours later, they had to do tests on your son and his co-defendant for trace evidence, at least, for gunpowder.
They did nothing. They did nothing. You know what they did? They had their ballistics person come and test everything. And you know what their ballistics person said on the record, on trial? He said, this stuff still has the manufacturer's oil inside of it. This stuff is brand new. It has never been used. That's what their ballistics person said. So I asked the lawyer, I said, why did they even put this guy on there? They said, no, they're just trying to prove that they're capable of it. So it doesn't make a difference that it's brand new. It doesn't make a difference that it's never been used. It don't even have nothing to do with this case, Mr. Rowan. They're just trying to establish that their mentality was like that, so they're capable of doing it.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand this. The barrel that they found in there was brand new, never been used.
Yes.
But the fact that they found a barrel there shows these guys have a history with guns. And even though we didn't find the smoking gun, the actual gun that was used, we found another gun which says they're capable of it. So they should be convicted.
No, let's not make that mistake. See, now you got to remember, they said a silencer and a barrel. They don't have a gun. You can't do nothing with just a barrel and a silencer.
Okay, so you can't test that for ballistics.
No, you can test that for ballistics, but it's not a gun. You don't have a trigger. You don't have anything. These are pieces that you would use. So, a lot of people would get that mistaken and think they found a gun. Nah, they never ever found a gun. But the two pieces that they found were all brand new from their ballistics person.
Okay, that's exactly what I was saying.
Right.
And they're just trying to establish, they're capable. If they got this in the room, then they're capable of at least once having the real gun in the room.
Exactly.
And they're really going for that down there.
See, the difference between there and here is they don't have a jury trial. You know what I'm saying? If they had a jury trial, the same things that you're questioning, the same things that you're thinking, our people or a person on the jury would question those same things and they would shoot back these questions. But when you're just dealing with a judge trial, that means you're just dealing with that judge who's supposed to be, quote unquote, go by the law. But I mean, I deal with honesty here. We're dealing with a Caucasian victim, we're dealing with a Caucasian prosecutor, and we're dealing with a Caucasian judge, which in Namibia is a very, very, very tiny percentage, from what I hear, that you can have all three of those at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So now we're dealing with a government who has been holding my son for 11 and a half years plus more now, having to say they got the wrong person. We dealing with some people who would have to go back to the Caucasian community and say, I had to let them go because we didn't have nothing. We dealing with a police force who never used any gloves, who never used any plastic bags, who never ever locked down the crime scene where they ballistics or they forensic person could test the whole room. We dealing with police that took phones and computers to the victim's mother house where this stuff was never supposed to ever been touched. It was supposed to be put in forensic bags and everything. We dealing with people who have botched and messed up everything. And now these are the same people that we're asking to be honest with us. And this is what I'm dealing with when I'm dealing. Nobody could care that 2 Americans is locked up down there for murder, because the bigger picture is that they're American, that they're Afro-American, and we don't like them and they shouldn't be here. And that's overriding the innocent and the guilt of them.
Understood. You mentioned the victim's mother. I know you recently traveled to Namibia for at least a portion of the trial. Was his mother at the trial or anybody from his family?
Nobody from his family. It's funny that you asked me that question too, because nobody from his family came to the trial, right? And they used to. The last time I was there, I seen the mother and father in there. I seen the sister in there. But my question to the lawyer has always been, okay, this kid was 21 years old also that got killed. This kid was in college. Okay, now, over in the United States, of course, we look at the victims and we look at the person that's killing, but we always want to know who is the victim that this person would want to kill this person. So not once have they really mentioned in the trial, who could this victim be? A 21-year-old Caucasian person that travels from the United States to Sweden to Namibia, that these kids would even want to get on a plane and think of murdering this person or be accused of murdering this person. What is his background? And it came out that he was living in a $7,000 a month flat in Midtown Manhattan. It came out that he was only in the United States as a college student, and he was living off of an internship. So we all know that's $40 or $50 a week when you're an intern. His family only has one restaurant in Namibia, but they travel all around the world. They go to the most prestigious schools. And ever since the lawyer asked that question, and he said, do you know that these people, that your financial records are public and that we can see how much you actually make at the restaurant and stuff like that, that they haven't been back to trial yet. Now the father is sick all of a sudden, and then the mother and the daughter is out of town, but they never once have been back to trial. So it leaves me to ask, what was they meeting about? Or what was they talking about? Or is it capable that he was meeting other people at that time? Because I know nobody in their right mind that's coming to kill somebody and gets a round trip ticket for 3 weeks later. Like it's none of it is adding up. But if we don't say nothing about it, or if we don't say we watching it, or if we don't say we know the facts of it, or if we don't say we got eyes on this particular case, then we leaving it open for them to do whatever they want to do to them. And that's one of the most important things about this. It's not just about my son, as well as everything else that I deal with. It's about everybody that's incarcerated in these foreign countries for things that they didn't do.
When do you expect this trial to conclude. 6.5 years of a trial is insane. I've never even heard of that. But granted, it's not this country. Maybe that's common. Have you spoken to the lawyers and got an understanding how much longer? When, because at this point, whether your son is found guilty or innocent, he's already done 11 and a half years. Like, when do you even get to a point to say, time served, you're acquitted, or, you got 15 to 20 and he can at least wrap his head around the fact that I got a few more years to go and I can leave this country.
Well. You got to think of it, the way that I try to put that. I try to wipe that out my mind, because after doing 11 and a half years and somebody finds you guilty, right? We got to deal with the mentality of what we dealing with. And what we dealing with is like, yeah, that would be time served a lot of times here. But it seems like to me they've gone above and beyond to show that my son and his co-defendant is guilty. So these are the same people that if they was to find him guilty with no evidence, that I would be asking to let him go for time serving. I know that that's not going to happen. I know that they've proven to me that if they're going to go all out this way and do all these illegal things to find him guilty, that if you find him guilty, I already know that they're going to give him the max to what that charge carries, because anything else he's charged with, they said robbery. Robbery or what? You never found no ID, no wallet, or no money or anything of the victims in any of their care or anything else like that. So that right there tells me the only thing that you can find these kids guilty, well, men now, guilty of is murder. And that right there can be 10 years, can be 20 years, can be 30 years, can be life. And it seems like the way that they've gone after them, the only way to get around this is by an innocent plea, because I really feel like that if he finds him guilty on the murder charge alone, that they're going to make an example of it, because they're going to have to prove why we've held him this long by saying little words like execution style murder from America to Namibia. And you got to say to yourself, these are two Americans charged with an execution style murder of a 21-year-old white man. Of course, they was 21. Why wouldn't you want to put coverage on this? This has never happened in history. Why wouldn't you? So when I go to the embassy, when I go to these places asking for the trial to be televised, we don't televise these type of trials. But then I go back to my hotel room and I'm watching trials televised. You know what I'm saying? Meaning to me, you just didn't want to televise this particular trial where your country is poor. You could use the money and everything else that this televised court case would bring in. But y'all want to stay away from this case, because if not only America, if I get so many DMs and so many stuff from Namibians themselves, they're scared to talk about it publicly, but they always tell me, yo, this is crooked. I ride by that jail every time, and I think about your son being in there. It's something they not talking about, and this, that, and other. I go through that all the time. I from Germany to Namibia, the conversation has been about my son. From Germans that see me sitting in the airport to Namibians that see me walking around the town. Look on my Instagram. Sometimes I show them, sometimes I don't, because they ask me not to show them because they're afraid of their government. You know what I'm saying? I try to tell them I wouldn't care how many years my son. If my son is found innocent, I'm not thinking about suing y'all. I'm not thinking about nothing. I'm thinking about getting my son up out of your country and bringing him home. If that's what I need to sign in order for y'all to be honest, for y'all to be truthful about this case, I'll sign he'll sign whatever it need to be done. We just want the facts and the truth to be laid out, and they're not being laid out. And nobody is watching them. They telling them it's okay.
I'm standing here talking to the father of an incarcerated child. But before I let you up out of here, how is your child? I know how, I mean, I hear it in every word. I know how it's affecting you. But he's the one in a foreign prison. He's the one being held with no evidence. Um, it's not like you, his mother, his loved ones can come visit him. He's not in a position, unless for outlets like this, to get his story out. How's he holding up mentally?
Mentally, I'm gonna tell you this. As men, you know what I'm saying, we don't show our feelings to certain individuals. You know what I'm saying? Just like when you're incarcerated and you go out to the visit, your job for that 6 hours that you on a visit is not to make your girl, your wife, or your kid feel the pain that you going through and back. You know what I'm saying? You come out on that visit, you want some chicken out the machine, you want some soda, and you don't even really talk about what's going on back there. You know what I'm saying? So when I talk to my son, all I can say is, you know what I'm saying, he stands tall. You know what I'm saying? He asks me more questions about my diabetes and everything else than I can get a chance to ask him about how it is back there. When I leave the visit, he'll look at me and, you know, he's 6'3", I'm 5'11", so he'll be like, yo, Pop, lift your head up. It's going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? So that's him. You know what I'm saying? So if he gets back there and if he's down and if he's crying and if he's whatever, he never shows that. He's a man's man. You know what I'm saying? It was an incident where the police ran up in his cell. And I think I just put this up on Instagram, and I show his co-defendant all beat up, his eyes is closed. You could see the welts from the iron all over his back and all over his arms and everything. And my son said, Pop, they came in here with that shit too. And I look at my son and I see his jaw a little big. You know what I'm saying? You know your child. So when you look at your child, you know how he holds his mouth and different things like that. And as I walked out, he said, Pop, I know you seen my face. I said, yeah. He said, yo, you should have seen theirs. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he said to me. So when you got somebody like that, man, his well-being, like I said, he's suing them for everything. So maybe that's why they think we gonna sue. You know, as far as the jail, he made him put a law library in there. He made him put recreation stuff. So as far as the inmates in the jail, he's like a God sent to them because he's American and because he reads and because he studies and everything. He sues for everything. He's getting them the things that they were supposed to rightfully have from day one. You know what I'm saying? So as far as his physical and his mental, he's all there. He's just ready to come home. He's just like that. He looked in my eyes, Prez. You asked me a question earlier. And to answer that question, he looked in my eyes and he said, Pop, I'm going to tell you the truth. I said, what? He said, I never even asked my co-defendant if he did it. He said, from me and him talking, I would know if he did it. He said, he ain't do it. He said, but I could tell you 150%. He said, I can't speak on what I didn't see. He said, but I'm going to tell you, I ain't do it, and I was nowhere near it. And he said, that, and I said to him, that's all I needed to know. Not that it would make a difference in him being my son, but for me being in a situation like him, but not in as far away from him, I know the rights and the wrong, and I know what karma is. You know what I'm saying? Karma gonna come get you one way or another. You know what I'm saying? So I would not be behind him the way I am now. I would be basically like, whenever you see these serial killers and all that, one side of the courtroom is the victims and one side of the courtroom is the family member of the defendant. I'm still his family. So I would still be his father if he was guilty, but my voice is louder now because I knows he's not guilty.
Beautiful, beautiful. How's his mother?
His mother is being a mother. You know, his mother loves him. Safety-wise, his mother has never been down there. Like we talked before, I almost got kidnapped down there. I had to jump out the window, run, this, that, and the other. I would never see his mother going through that. You know what I'm saying? So we both agree that she won't take that trip. So She's like, I haven't seen my son in almost 12 years. You know what I'm saying? So you ask that question, I'm going to say she's me plus 3 more when it comes to feelings. Because she hasn't seen him. She hasn't held him. She hasn't been to court. She hasn't been down there one time. She can't even write him. You know what I'm saying? One good thing that I did this week was I finally got a phone number that she could call. And if she called on Saturday and Sunday between 8 and 3, they'll let her talk to him. You know what I'm saying? So that type of leeway is good. That type of leeway is great. It's coming to an end now. When the state rests their case, the judge is going to show his true colors. Because when the state rests their case, they should rest their case in January sometime. So when they rest their case in January, we put in what they call a 174 motion. A 174 motion is to dismiss the case due to lack of evidence, meaning that the state has not proved without a reasonable doubt that this young man should be incarcerated. Without all the things that they don't have, if this judge shoots down this motion and he wants to continue on with trial, then we know what we're dealing with, because the only thing that we can show in trial is what you didn't show. And if you're dealing with a judge, you shouldn't have to show what they didn't show, because he's a professional. So if he allows this trial to go on anywhere past the state rest, then we know what we're dealing with. And that's what we're trying not to do, because you haven't proved anything.
I know you know firsthand what it is to take a life. And in some regards, even though your son is still breathing, his life has been taken from y'all as you know it, you and his mother. But there's another side, which is the victim's family. And you know that they have to be in pain. You know, whether they have the right people on trial or not, they lost a 21-year-old son. If you had an opportunity, if they had an opportunity to see this interview, what would you like to say to them?
I'm gonna give you an example of something, man. When I first started going to trial down there, and the mother would come to court, the courtroom is not that big. So the mother is actually sitting right in front of me, right besides me. And my son is actually about 5 feet away from her. And the mother turned around and she's looking at me like I'm a piece of dirt on the floor. She's looking at me from head to toe, head to toe. My son is across from me and his leg is out and I see his leg shaking. And he's shaking his head back and forth. And he said, he mumbled something under his mouth, like, that's my father, stop disrespecting him. And at lunchtime, I had a minute to talk to him and I said, son, I said, yo, let's remember one thing. I said, regardless of what, she lost her son. And right now you're on trial for killing her son. You see what I'm saying? So at no form or no point would I allow my son to disrespect anyone in his family. And each and every day, even though I don't know this young man, I've put him in my prayers. If you remember what I said about anybody who lost their life dealing with me or anything else is in my prayers. They're in my prayers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I've put him in my prayers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because my son is being charged with your murder. So right now, that means I know that you're dead. So whether he did it or not, I'm saying prayers for you and your family now. You know what I'm saying? So I say at the end of your prayer, as we all say, we say bless everybody, but we don't know the people's names. So all I did was, being that I know his name, before I say bless everybody, I say bless him, because at the end of the day, I want the truth to be able to come out. I want you to find who killed your son, but not at the price of my son's life. You know what I'm saying? And I think I get, as parents, they supposed to feel that way. So all of my hatred goes toward the officers and everybody that's investigating this case. not against the victim and the family.
You know, this has been an eye-opening conversation. It has been a conversation on one hand of redemption of your own life, and on the other hand, it's saving a life, the life of your son. I pray that this conversation gets to the right people. I pray that it goes beyond the U.S. borders and somebody sees this who can make a difference in your son's case, because from everything you told us, he needs to come home. He needs to come home. So I thank you for your honesty, your candor, your care, like really opening your heart and caring as a man and showing what it is that a father should be, forget a parent should be doing in a situation like this. It's not about how it makes you look. It's about doing the right thing by your child. And for that, I salute you. I appreciate you. And on behalf of this entire Vlad TV platform, man, you know, I wish you the best. And I wish your son and even the parents of the victim, you know, as much peace as they could possibly have in their life. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the platform also for getting the word out. But for everybody that knows, man, y'all can go to Roger Barnes on my page. The petition is there. Sign the petition. We trying to get it heard. We trying to get it fought. We trying to get it listened to. And I just want every parent out there to realize, man, that whether you want to or whether you don't, when you bring them kids in your life, you know what I'm saying, they become the number one thing. It ain't about the way you look no more. And you know what I'm saying? I see so many parents worry about the way they look instead of worrying about the way their kids look. And I just want people to wake up before it's too late to understand that we are parents, man. We are fathers, we are mothers, and we here to save the world. But we got to do it one person at a time with each other.
Much love and respect, kid.